Your Warzone still stutters and you're not having perfect FPS? Season 2 Reloaded just dropped. Let me tell you what everything does, what their FPS impact is, and if you can leave it high, low, medium. First, the most important thing to fix stutters, video memory scale. You think this as high as possible is best? Completely wrong. Now I've set everything to ultra. You can see we're running around with what, 190, 160 to almost 200 FPS. So it's quite some FPS lows and we want to peak over the 200. But most importantly, I'm using 15 gigabyte of VRAM out of my 16 gigabyte. And I'm actually not using that. The game maximum uses 6 gigabyte from the settings. Therefore, having it on 90% can actually cause some of the most crazy FPS lows, if not stutters. I just went down to 132 for no reason. On the graphics setting, it says it's using around 5 gigabytes, and in-game it's 15 suddenly. Try setting this as low as possible. I can do as low as 50%, and we're even going to be lowering your VRAM usage with our settings here, especially with texture resolution. Have the render resolution on 100%. If you want to get some bonus frames, you can turn this down to 90%. That will give you a frame boost, but it will make everything look rather blurry. For the anti-aliasing, this is a big question often. I put it down to SMA2X, and then I put it actually to very low quality. Why that? Because I want my edges to look jagged to a degree, especially when the gun starts getting blurry around the edges and whatsoever. This makes me be able to spot enemies clearer. If you find that your edges start running, you can actually put this on normal and you should be fine about that. Now for texture resolution, you can see that the biggest jump for texture resolution, you can see the biggest jump is down to normal. There's one to low and also very low. But if you have the VRAM, you want to keep this on normal because it will look the best compared to what high is. If you have a very old GPU, low is where you're going for. Very low is not worth it because the resources you're saving are not worth the visual impact. Anisotropic filtering makes everything look better, especially when viewed at an angle. What that means is you have this cobblestone here and the cobbles would be a flat surface. But as you have the anisotropic filtering on, it kind of makes them have actual texture, actual life in them, also house surfaces and whatsoever. Bringing this down technically would reduce the load on your GPU, but it's absolutely minimal and it makes the game look so much better, so you keep this on high. Nearby level of detail goes down to low and we'll do something in the settings file to boost that even more. Distant level of detail also too low. Don't worry, that doesn't impact enemy rendering. The clutter draw distance goes down to short, but we'll do something in the settings file to shorten this even more. For the particle quality, you can put this to low because you're not going to stare into the thermite and be like, wow, this is so beautiful. You don't matter about explosions, flames, or whatsoever. You want them to not clutter your vision, so you're going to reduce the quality of that tremendously. The particle level of quality is more a personal preference. It doesn't really matter if you put this on very low or high. The impact is minimal. The particle quality level doesn't matter at all pretty much because we set the particle quality already to low. So this can stay on high. Shadows are annoying. Shadows are taking resources like crazy. There's a lot of shadows in the game. Make it as low as possible. The tessellation can be set to all. It says to have a great impact on VRAM and GPU, but it does not have an impact on FPS if you actually do check in game. And it does make the game just look visually better. The terrain memory wants to be maxed because you want as much of the terrain into your cache so it can be pulled out of there and doesn't have to be re-rendered the whole time. On-demand texture streaming off because something is still oddly weird about that, and that's why the stream quality also stays low. For volumetric lighting, that needs to be down to low. Everything with volumetric has a lot of graphical equations inbound and therefore a high impact on your FPS. And the last thing you want to have is some beautiful shafts of lightning coming out of freaking nowhere when you want to focus on what's in front of you. Set the physics quality of water off. I mean, it might look beautiful, but you don't really need it, and it's causing only FPS issues. For the caustics, the same. Shadow map resolution, it doesn't really matter where you set this to because the VRAM impact is absolutely minimum. The GPU impact is there though. The biggest impact for FPS is from high to normal again. If your GPU is struggling, go down to low, very low, not worth it. I set it to normal, makes the shadows look good. It kind of blurs them more and more, but still has these rather sharpish edges and gives you a good quality picture. Screen space shadows straight up off, not more shadows wanted, and especially no FPS impact wanted. Spot shadow quality also goes down all the way to low, and the spot cache stays on ultra. It has an effect on your VRAM high, but the spot cache essentially loads all the shadows into your VRAM to then pull them out of it when needed and reduce loading times, FPS impact, everything. Now, if you have a very low VRAM card, high is also acceptable, but ultra is preferred. Particle lightning all the way down to low. Again, you're not going to be looking into those beautiful thermites. Bring it just down. Then for ambient occlusion, you can put this on static, definitely not dynamic. Dynamic makes the game really tank some FPS. If you put this on off, it's probably the best FPS settings, but static still makes it look rather beautiful. Keep in mind though, to keep this down to normal. So the GTAO quality has to actually go drop to normal instead of ultra quality. Screen space reflections off, static reflection quality low, weather grid volume low. Turn it off, but I kind of like to have a little bit of the weather grid on top and looking not absolutely weird. So low is my preferred setting there instead of just completely turning it off. Depth of field, world motion blur, weapon motion blur, filmic grain, everything goes to the drain. And in the view tab, you're also going to have the field of view on 120. And most important, the weapon field of view is wide. So you don't want the gun to be narrow to your face. You want it wide so you do actually see more. And then the camera shake in first person and third person down to 50%. So your camera is not bouncing that much when you're running. Now, this already has a tremendous impact, but there's two settings we still have to do in the files. And then we can check our VRAM and our FPS in game. You go under Documents, Call of Duty, Players, and then you open the Options 3 COD 22. Then next, you're going to go for Threats. And Threats is the thread count for handling the job queue. That one needs to be exactly the course you have, which you can find in your task manager. Under CPU, it says course 12 for me. So I set this to 12. The usual setting for me is 8 that the game actually sets it to. And if I set it to 12, everything just runs smoother. And magically, with these settings, my VRAM usage dropped down to 9 GB, which is still over the 50%. But as you notice, my FPS lows are actually not low. I'm running around here with 180 FPS low, currently 200 plus FPS, so the improvement is absolutely feelable. Running around in the more populated areas as well. It goes as low as 144 FPS, but never below 144 FPS for my system. Now with RAM overclocks and everything, I could squeeze out even more. Not the point though. The 9 GB of VRAM usage is like the big thing to look at. You can have your video memory scale, which I set to 50%, lower than what's actually being utilized by the game, and it will then work around all your stutters perfectly. Tell me in the comments below how much this helped you. And if you're looking for the top 5 Season 2 Reloaded loadouts, long range and short range beamers, I got you covered. Now click, 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 click.